All right. All right. Good evening. Says cranking the heavy metal music today. Yeah, I watched, I've got a few seconds here. I was watching these videos. It's this guitar player in his bedroom. If blank played for blank, so he would do like if Yngwie played for Van Halen, you know, if Yngwie played for Michael Jackson, or if Eddie Van Halen played for ZZ Top, you know, and he's got, he's really good. He's good. He's a really good player. And he did, if Eddie Van Halen played for Aha, right? Stand By Me. Take On Me, Stand By Me. He did The Police, too. It was really, really good, really talented. Anyway, so I was cranking that stuff up today. Okay, tonight, Nick Redfern. Yeah, Slenderman. Got the book right here. So that's what we're going to do tonight. Tomorrow night's Riz Verk. Are you enjoying On Stellar? Pretty amazing, isn't it? Pretty stellar over there at On Stellar. I know I keep hyping this up, but I have to because it's the next big thing. And I'm off Facebook here, and I want to make sure that all of you are with me over on Stellar when we do that. Okay, here we go. Live in 5. Bye.
Bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Good evening. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Today's Tuesday, May 15th, 2018. 134 days into the new year, just 231 days left. We are live from a bunker somewhere in beautiful downtown Burbank, California. And I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the Planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? How you doing? All right. Tonight, very special guest Nick Redfern is here. We're going to talk about his new book, The Slenderman Mysteries. You got it right here. There it is. Slenderman Mysteries. Tomorrow night, Riz Verk is here. We're going to discuss Killer AI. Yes, sir. That's tomorrow night. Thursday is another Fader night with John Rappaport. He's going to be here with his No More Fake Newsroom Live, followed by open lines all night long. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Everything is Fade to Black. You can follow us on Twitter right now at JChurchRadio. At JChurchRadio. Let's see what's going on over here on Twitter. TweetDeck, because I'm on Stellar right now. Look at TweetDeck. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good stuff. See, the thing, Oh, look at Mark Tarana coming in strong. Oh, is that Karen McIntyre? You guys both had the same GIF, the Slenderman dancing GIF. That's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing. You guys are good. Thank you for these. Oh, man, look at how many there are tonight. You guys are all in a good mood, I see. All right. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. As everybody knows by now, we'll be on Facebook for a little while longer. We're going to stick it out. My goal, and you can like us and try to friend me. I won't be friending anymore. That's a waste of time. But I hit my friends limit, 5,000 a couple of years ago, and I went through and I would, deactivated accounts or whatever, shut down accounts, and so you got to go through a list of 5,000. You go through 5,000, and 10, 20, people are no longer on Facebook. And so you delete those. Facebook doesn't automatically remove them from your friends list. I don't know if you knew that. So you'd have to go through your friends list and look for the little ghost head, right? The Michelin Man. And you find that, the Casper head, and then deactivate or unfriend them. And then go back and cycle through. And now so many people are leaving Facebook. I went through last month when we were doing On Stellar, and I went through my friends list, 5,000, which it takes forever to do. And there was probably, I would say, in the neighborhood of about 100 deactivated accounts, and people that I knew, that just didn't, leave this earth or anything. They just shut down. So, and I went back and I've got, 1,000 or so friend requests that are sitting there, and then you got to go through those. Well, anyway, I got through about 20 or 30 or something like that. I was like, man, I'm done doing this. Just done. So anyway, that's what I'm just going to use Facebook to invite everybody over to OnStellar. That's it. That's all it's there for. It's a vehicle. It's just a vehicle. It's a vehicle to introduce OnStellar to the world. But you can go and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can go and do that. We'll keep that active for a little bit. The Sandbox on Twitter, by the way, is #F2B. Come over and hang out there. Man, these gifts, you guys are out of control. For all of the new listeners to the show, the Sandbox is where all of the Fadernauts in the audience hangs out each night. And at the beginning of the show, when the music starts, everybody starts posting these dancing gifs. Oh, look at the Elvis. Aloha from Hawaii. Wow. That's a good one. So that's what I'm looking at here. And if you want to check out all the dancing gifs at JChurch Radio, we still like, in the meantime, we still like Twitter. All right, you can email throughout the show, Jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. Easy. And also, I just mentioned the Sandbox, #F2B. There will be, by the end of the night, 2,000 or 3,000 tweets there. And we haven't got to like a 10,000 tweet night, though. Well, we have when we've posted pictures during a show. We've done it. But just like a standard night, a standard conversation night, it's 2,000 to 3,000 tweets right there. #F2B. Come and check it out. And let's go. Let's get rolling here. We got breaking news. And I saw this coming, but it happened today. Kim Jong-un, Fatty Fat, North Korea, has threatened to cancel the planned summit between President Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un, scheduled for June 12th in Singapore. I guess it's at that hotel with the ship on top that we were talking about last night, the Marina Sands, saying that the U.S. should carefully consider the fate of the upcoming meeting in view of what it calls provocative military disturbances with South Korea. In other words, they're talking about the military exercises that I thought, now this is what I thought. Isn't this what you heard, last month, that Kim Fatty Fat said, it's cool. It's cool. Do your thing. Don't care about the military exercises. We don't care about troops on the DMZ. We don't care about anything. We are going to dismantle. We are going to denuclearize. We're going to blow up our test site. We're just going to do whatever you want to do. Okay? We just want to unify with our South Korea neighbor and one Korea, one people, and we just want to be friends. This is the new us. And that didn't last too long, did it? Right? Now, I'm a little bit confused. And I thought, this is what I remember. I didn't even need to go back and check because it was all on all the press releases and the meetings and Pompeo. And, oh, man. So, saying that, Kim Fatty Fat just said he understands that we need military exercises. He understands that we've had issues. He understands that South Korea needs to defend themselves. He understands that it should be a nuclear-free peninsula. He understands that we need to dismantle the program. He understands everything is fine. He gets it. He understands these things. That's what I heard over and over and over and over and over again. And here we are, less than a month out, June 12th, right? And he's already threatened to pull out. Now, I don't know what his angle is. Well, the angle is he wants something. Now, if he pulls out of this, are we right back to where we were before? That's the thing. Are we right back to this tension? It felt good. We didn't even get to the blowing up of the stupid nuclear test site. We didn't even get to see that happen. I wonder if that's gonna go down. Oh, man. All right. Okay. All right. Enough of that. You knew it was gonna happen. You just knew it. Now, let's hope that the summit goes off and everything that Kim Fatty Fat said was true, that he understands. I don't see the U.S. troops leaving South Korea. I don't see that happening. I don't see U.S. troops leaving anywhere. Guam. I don't see that happening. So I don't know what it is that he would expect us to give up. I don't know about the military drills. I don't know about any of that. One thing is for sure, right on the other side of the DMZ, there are thousands of missiles and cannons and howitzers that are pointing right at Seoul. Right? It's what is he going to give all of that up? So there you go. There you go. You knew this was going to happen. Let's hope the summit goes off. All right, now back to OnStellar. I've got to do this tonight because I spent so much time on OnStellar today, and I'm just going to go through and click. Everybody that just friended me, right? One. Let's just go down. And so when you're here and everybody there, boom, 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 boom. See, I just did it because everybody that is here is enjoying an advertising free, no data mining free, no censorship, no crazy political talk, no harassment. Nothing like that is going on right now. And you can come over and just hang out and have a good time and share knowledge and enjoy the experience. And I think I mentioned this yesterday. I certainly mentioned it to somebody. Do you remember back on AOL 1995? AOL 1995, 1996, and you're surfing around and you're doing, and you saw your first pop-up ad? Remember that? Went right across your screen. Boom. And you about threw your computer out the window. You were so offended and so pop-up ad. Who could do this to me? A pop-up ad. Remember that? Well, go over to OnStellar. That's gone. Gone. No advertising. Facebook. I'm over here on Facebook right now. And you go to your news feed. So I just loaded up my news feed. Okay, here we go. I'm scrolling. One post, ad, post, ad, post, ad, post, ad, post, post, ad, post, and then of course the posts that are disguised as ads, right? So and so likes ad. So I just looked at 20 posts and I looked at 20 ads. That's disgusting. And you are so used to it. The automated videos playing. You got to scroll left, right, Amazon, this, that. It's everything is an ad. It's not what you get over at OnStellar. Now, the other beautiful thing, now that we've added the news feed, it's called My Feed right there at the top of the page. So this is the update from today. So now your news feed has got two different scrolls on it. How cool is that? The post on the right has its own scroll, and the articles on the left are on their own scroll, and you can do your own man, that is beautiful. It's genius. It's things like this that nobody else has, and no other social media platform. And Facebook certainly will not adapt. They're too big. They don't care about you. They don't. They honestly do not care about you. And having things like this technology and this vision for the user experience of the future, this is incredible. And now that the news feed is live and the basic shell of everything is operational, now we're going to go back and really, really add some really cool features, dial in the look and the feel, which is already great, but, dial it in, fine-tune it, just fine-tune it. The basic tapestry, the basic painting is on the canvas in front of us, and that's it. Now you just dial it in, just adjust and have fun, and that's what OnStellar is. Facebook is crap. Facebook is you come over here and you experience this and you realize out of the gate how wonderful the internet is, how cool it is, man. And there's no right now, by the way, there's no trolls over here. I'm sure they're lurking, but they don't know what to do. There's too many cool people here, right? But you know what? OnStellar is going to add. Are you ready? They're going to add a troll button. Let somebody troll. I don't know what we're going to... Should we make it look like the troll under the bridge? A little icon. Right? Where you just click on that and that notification goes through. That notification goes through and you do not want to have that on you. And we will have fun. Think about that. If the community wants to give you a new profile picture, that's a troll. That's why this platform is cool, because it's built for you. Think about that. Oh, man. And yeah, it could happen, by the way. Okay. I'm very excited to have Nick Redfern here, and his if you go over, for who he writes for and everything, if you go over to his Nick Redfern blogspot, the link is over at jimmychurchradio.com. He is a writing machine, and I really enjoy his stuff, and I've teased him over the years because it's true that I will go and read his stuff and then steal it, and then come on the air that night. If I ever need material, I go read Nick. I do. I really do. The way that he writes and the way that he investigates and researches, he's one of the best. And I steal. But at least I tell him that. I just want to let him know. And I tell everybody to go read his stuff. So tonight, Nick Redfern is here. His new book is The Slenderman Mysteries, and we'll be discussing that. Let's get the show cracking. I do want to give birthday wishes today to Brian Eno. Brian Eno today is 74. And his Roxy Music, his video, More Than This, 1982, right? Maybe 83, 82, right in there. At the dawn of MTV, More Than This is a place that you go to if you're my age. You go right back to being 16, 17 years old again when MTV cranked off and More Than This was playing. And he's got a place for all of us. Happy birthday, Brian Eno, today, 74. Mike Oldfield today is just 64. And, of course, Tubular Bells, which launched Virgin Records, by the way, and started that empire, and was this theme song to The Exorcist. Mike Oldfield, one of the talented musicians and songwriters of our generation, absolutely incredible talent. And that song, Tubular Bells, is one of the creepiest, best instrumentals ever. Happy birthday today to Mike Oldfield. Our dead guy's birthday today is, and I do need a moment of silence, Gary Thane. 1948 to 1975. Gary died at the age of 27. And of course, he was the bassist for Uriah Heep. He played on 4 studio albums: Demons and Wizards, yes, sir. The Magician's Birthday, yes, sirree. Sweet Freedom and Wonderworld. 4 amazing albums. But he also played on their live album, Uriah Heep Live. During his last tour in the United States with Uriah Heep, he suffered an electric shock on stage at the Moody Coliseum in Dallas, Texas, on the 15th of September in 1974, and he was seriously injured. He was shocked. Due to his drug addiction, he was not able to perform. Perform properly. He was so talented. But drugs and this electrical shock changed him. And he was fired by the band in early 1975 and replaced by the great John Wetton. Thane died of respiratory failure due to a heroin overdose on the 8th of December, 1975. At age 27, he was one of the greats. Gary Thane. Wow. Unbelievable story. I'm a big Uriah Heep fan. All of us are, if you're into metal. And there you go. Most people don't know. Blizzard of Oz. Ozzy's first album. And Diary of a Madman. That was Uriah Heep. That was Uriah Heep. The backup band was Uriah Heep, plus Randy Rhoads. Most people don't know that. And it's kind of the pictures on the album tell a different story. Okay, anyway, Uriah Heep, they were that good. On this day in history, OTD, 1963, Gordon Cooper is launched into space aboard Faith 7 on the longest American space mission to date. Cooper completed 22 orbits of the Earth in 34 hours on this day in 1963. Fader fact. Here you go. Before the Columbian Exchange, listen to me. Before the Columbian Exchange, there were no oranges in Florida. There were no bananas in Ecuador. There were no potatoes in Ireland. There was no coffee in Colombia. There were no pineapples in Hawaii. There were no rubber trees in Africa. There were no tomatoes in Italy. And no chocolate in Switzerland. Holy crap! Now, in case you didn't know, the Columbian Exchange was the widespread transfer of plants, animals, culture, human populations, technology, and ideas between the Americas and the Old World in the 15th and 16th centuries. And that is a fader fact. Tonight, Nick Redfern is here, and we're going to talk about the Slenderman Mysteries. This is his latest book on Slenderman, but I would say this. You could write an encyclopedia set on Slenderman. And the reasons Slenderman is complex and how it manifested itself in modern folklore through modern means and what resulted from it is huge. We can look throughout history for other examples of myths and legends, folklore, tales, like Slenderman. Slenderman was not the first. Slenderman is certainly the latest. And I used to go on the net and find the creepypasta Slenderman stories and listen to them in the dark. Some are better than others, but it freaked me out. And the story and the idea behind Slenderman is probably creepier than Slenderman. The power of the internet, the power of the mind, the power of telling a good story, like the Creepypasta series, which you can go and do today, is incredible. And the modern versions and the modern spins that some of the better creepypasta does is some of the scariest stuff that you can listen to. And it's fun. It's fun. It's fun. It's fun to get scared. That's why we go to movies and get scared and scream and do all of that. Because we enjoy it. And I do. And I went through the creepypasta stuff and the Slenderman, listening to modern writers tell us how they get scared and what terrifies them. And when you look at it in the modern context, if you go back to, I just talked about the troll under the bridge, or the old lady in the woods, or the ghost, or these stories, that are hundreds of years old. Back then, they were terrifying because they were told and created in the modern context of that day. So you roll in Slenderman with the modern context and the other creepypasta stories that are there, and you've got some good stuff. And if you haven't gone and checked out creepypasta, you owe it to yourself to go and do just that. Just get it going on your tablet, your computer, and put it on your nightstand. I'm serious too. And fall asleep to it. Some of them are really, really good and really original. And some of the voices and the narrators out there are really good at what they do. But the modern version of these, I've got to say, it is it's creepy and it's scary and it's terrifying. Slenderman came out of that. And what Slenderman has manifested itself into, I think, is what we are all scared of. The character, the way he looks. If you've ever gone, I think it's Grand Theft Auto, and you play Grand Theft Auto. Is it Grand Theft Auto 5? Is that San Andreas? And so I went and played the game because I heard that, Slenderman is there. So I'm playing Grand Theft Auto. And there it is. Slenderman pops up, man, in the woods. And you had to go to a cabin in the middle of the woods. And you walked up to the door and went inside the cabin and did a couple of things. Then boom, Slenderman is off in the distance behind some trees and comes up to you, and you can't shake him. So now you're out of your car and you're running, and Slenderman is there. It's the way that it's done It's scary. It's terrifying. And it's well done. But it's modern. And it's managed to man itself into reality. Is that the hive mind? Is that the internet of the hive mind of us? Well, tonight we're going to talk to Nick about all of that. It is, like I said, he's written one more book on it. I think, personally, you could write a dozen and not hit bottom. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Nick Redfern, the Slenderman Mysteries. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. Tomorrow night, right here, Riz Verk is our guest, and we're going to be discussing killer AI tomorrow night, as only Riz can do it. His new article is amazing. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Thursday night is Fader Night. John Rappaport and his No More Fake Newsroom live, followed by open lines all night long. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. You can follow Nick on Twitter, Nick Redfern UFO. I'll be right back with Nick. Stay with me.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
What can I say about the most popular tea on the internet? And what do customers say about Life Change Tea at GetTheTea.com? A lot. But by federal law, we at GetTheTea.com cannot make claims to how this product can enhance your health. We cannot even post our testimonies without being in compliance. So how do we get past the hump? Try our products at GetTheTea.com and see for yourself. You can send us a testimony, but we just can't post it. Bummer. Our products are GMO-free and organic. We pride ourselves in being the best we can be, and we urge you to take charge of your health. We're 11 years strong, and many of our customers have shared their successes with friends and family. Protect your colon. Log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. GetTheTea.com. GetTheTea.com.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show. On the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Win big with KGRA this summer. Tickets and hotel accommodations to the biggest conferences, autographed books and DVDs, chances to win all-inclusive conference cruises, and private dinners with your favorite KGRA hosts. Click the contest tab at KGRAradio.com for your chance to win big this summer. Your contact for the best alternative talk radio on the planet. KGRAradio.com.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Nick Redfern is with us. We're going to discuss his new book, The Slenderman Mysteries. Tomorrow night, Riz Verk is here discussing his new article, Killer AI. Thursday night is another Fader night with John Rappaport and his No More Fake Newsroom Live, followed by Open Lines all night long. One night, we got to get Nick Redfern in here for Open Lines. Hang out all night, talk some music, get out of the supernatural paranormal world and talk some music. Nick Redfern. He works as a full-time writer, a lecturer, a journalist. He writes about a wide range of unsolved mysteries, including Bigfoot, UFOs, Loch Ness Monster, alien encounters, and government conspiracies. He has written 33 books. I don't believe that number. I think it's closer to 60, including Men in Black, the zombie book, For Nobody's Eyes Only, Final Events, Secret History, Monster Files, The World's Weirdest Places, The Pyramids and the Pentagon, and The Chupacabra Road Trip. Nick writes for the MUFON UFO Journal and Mysterious Universe, where I get all of my best material. Nick has appeared on numerous television shows, including Fox News, the History Channel's Ancient Aliens, Monster Quest, UFO Hunters, VH1's Legend Hunters, National Geographic Channel's The Truth About UFOs and Paranatural, BBC's Out of This World, MSNBC's Countdown, and Sci-Fi Channel's Proof Positive. And tonight we're going to discuss the Slenderman Mysteries. His website is nickredfern40.blogspot.com. The links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. I'd like to welcome back to Fade to Black, Nick Redfern. Nick, good evening, man. How are you?
Hey, Jimmy. I'm doing good, thanks. How's it with you?
It's always great, but you know what I'm going to ask you first, Nick? What T-shirt do you have on? Right now.
Should I really tell you?
Yeah.
Actually, it's one of my favorite falling apart T-shirts. It's like a 10-year-old Coors Light beer green T-shirt.
Oh, okay. All right. I was hoping for the Misfits, but, Coors Light, there you go. So...
Well... yeah.
Oh man, do you when people come up to you, Nick, before we get started, do they necessarily go to the supernatural, or do they come up and talk music?
It's a bit of both, really. I mean, I have sort of background in writing for music magazines, and I play guitar and get up with friends now and again, and so I'm cool with either, really, or a bit of both. For me, I enjoy hanging out with people, at conferences and gigs, and just having a good time. I think when you go to these conferences, obviously people go there to get the information, the new data, but there's always a good social scene as well, and I think that's important, where, everybody can hang out and we're all together kind of thing, and it all works well.
Well, what I have found, and you and I certainly have talked about this before, but I think it's important that with me, like yourself, you are you, and you've never held that back. And I am who I am, and I like to talk about punk rock, and I like to talk about heavy metal music, and I like to talk about scary things and UFOs. These are the things that make me, right? And if I did it enough, the audience would understand that I'm not trying to be I'm just myself, but that they are also into those same things. Right? We all grew up in the 70s and the 80s and MTV and what went down in the music scene. And these things are important to us. And you know what? So are UFOs, and so was Bigfoot. And so...
You're right. And no, I totally agree with you. I think, everybody in the subject should be just who you are, and don't try and present yourself as something that you think people should expect you to be. That's why, I go to conferences and they're like, the organizers often, they're like, oh, Nick, can't you put a shirt and tie and a jacket on? I'm like, no, I don't own them. And, I own like a couple of hundred T-shirts and about 10 pairs of black jeans, 2 or 3 blue jeans, half a dozen pairs of Converse All-Stars, and about 5 or 6 black biker jackets, and that's it. And if it's that's not good enough for you, it's too bad, you know what I mean?
Well, when we designed the Fade to Black T-shirt, our standard was, will it look good on Nick Redfern? Right, that was our standard, and one of my prized possessions is that picture that you sent me one day of you wearing the Fade to Black shirt, and I said to myself, perfect. We hit it out of the park. But yeah, that's.
I remember that actually. I remember that. I'm wearing like a bright orange and yellow bandana. Or
yes.
That
yeah, that was a few years ago. Yeah. Could you imagine if you went to a conference and it was like? Well, this is a nightmare. Like an expensive restaurant, right? That you show up and you don't have a jacket and they give you the jacket to wear. So you go to a conference and you show up and you go, no, I don't have a jacket. We do right here, Nick. Right?
Well, fortunately, that has never actually happened, and hopefully it never will. You know, it's. But I mean, joking aside, I think it is important that not just what you say, but how you present yourself, and I always think the data speaks for itself when we're lecturing on whether it's Bigfoot, Roswell, cryptozoology, chupacabra, whatever. The way I look at it, if you can present like a good, solid lecture with a lot of data and names and images for the audience to see, and throw in a few jokes and keep it informative and intriguing for them, I don't think it matters, if you come on stage in a pair of shiny shoes or a pair of biker boots. It might matter to some, but it really shouldn't.
Well, how do you? I've given you a lot of credit over the years for stealing your material. I do it all the time. You're very prolific, and you're always writing, and at least I admit to it. Right? Okay, so that's half of it. But you're very, very prolific, and one of the things that you wrote about once, and then you said it during one of our panels a few years ago, but you said something that stuck with me. We'll get to Slenderman in a second. But you said something that stuck with me so much that I have quoted you time and time again over the years. And you said this. You said, we were talking about UFOs, and you had written about it, but then you repeated it, which was this. You said, I don't necessarily think it's interstellar travel or speed of light, that these things could just be coming to us from inside of our solar system. They don't need to do anything. They just zip over here really quickly. They could be anywhere inside of our solar system. And that's probably what we're seeing here. They're not coming from another star at the speed of light through a wormhole. That's a very heavy statement, and it's always stopped me in my tracks. Where did that thought come from for you?
Well, when I was a kid and I first got into all this, it was all very much black and white, that Bigfoot's a giant ape from wherever, and, aliens are coming from this star system. But, over time, a lot of my views have changed, as lots of things, change as you sort of progress through the years. But, I think certainly some of my views have changed, where I think some of these entities, if you like, may not be from, as you said, from some faraway star system, but maybe, that things like quantum physics, which are allowing for the existence of like multiple dimensions and different realms of existence, I often think that they're alien in the sense that they're non-human, but it could be, like tuning in your radio from one station to another. They can flit in and out of our reality and back again, rather than having to come these vast distances. I think that's probably more likely. But as I said, it still makes them alien. But does it make them extraterrestrial, or does it make them sort of multi-dimensional? That's kind of the big question.
Yeah, because we have so many different types of sightings nearly every single day, different types of craft, different. And there's so many that there would almost have to be a traffic jam somewhere. You know what I mean? But maybe it's as simple as they're already here. They're just cruising by. They're already here. They don't have to jump on, the 10 freeway of the universe and travel here these vast distances and take a lot of time. They're here. They're going back, and we're seeing the same craft over and over again because they're just here in the neighborhood.
Well, yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense because, regardless what people think about the subject, I think there is this tendency to assume that when the UFO is not around, it's way off wherever. But no, you're right. I mean, if you're dealing with something that has an interest in the human race and the planet for whatever reasons, well, it would make far more sense to be relatively close to it all the time, if not on it permanently.
Where do you, I mention Mysterious Universe all the time, and how much writing you do, including all of the books, and which is not an easy task to write a book, let alone as many as you have. Do you find yourself getting writer's block? Where do you continually come up to the with this fresh material every single day?
Well, actually, I really don't get writer's block, and I think the main reason why is because I like to sort of keep things structured, and by that I like to sort of just write Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. I like to keep it as like job hours, if you like, and then by doing that, I have every night off and I have every weekend off. Sort of 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, the laptop goes into sleep mode and it don't get opened again till 8 o'clock Monday morning, and then I've got all Friday night, all Saturday, all Sunday. I've got every night off in the week, and so by doing it like that, I don't get frazzled, I don't get burned out. I have a good, fun social life, and evenings and weekends, and that way I don't get that sense of exhaustion or just trying to come up with ideas, because you're constantly sort of refreshed by doing it like that. Now, it does require, it's like any job when you're sort of self-employed at working and working at home, you have to be structured, because it would be so easy to think, oh, I'll just sleep until noon, but then you think, oh crap, I've got half the day's gone. So, I am structured in that sense, but I'm also someone who values a good social life and takes the time off and has a good time, and then that way I'm not sort of frazzled from writing like 18 hours a day or 16 hours a day, which I just could not do. I'd blow a blood vessel or something.
Do you ever? Do you ever get scared? Do you scare yourself as you're writing?
No, not really, because I'm not someone who has that kind of character anyway. If I'm sort of in the woods on an expedition for, Bigfoot, or out on a lake where there's been a lake monster story, that kind of thing, I kind of get like an adrenaline rush to do it more. It's not like, I get panicky and back off. I like to sort of, well, this is cool, let's not just back off, let's just go and look for it. So I kind of view it from an exciting perspective, not looking at it as, the glass half full kind of thing. But I guess some of the books I write, I write them as the story went along. If it's like an expedition, like the Chupacabra road trip book, I write that in the theme of the story. It's called Chupacabra road trip because I write it like the road trip happened, sort of. It was a dark and stormy night, and I jumped in the car and headed off into the darkness looking for the Chupacabra. That's how I write those kind of books. But then other ones which sort of require more of a journalistic approach, I take like a detached angle where it's, I'm just talking about the story. I'm not talking about my role in the story, so it's more like that's written more along the lines of like a newspaper article or magazine article, versus, the expedition diary type of of writing as well that I do.
Well, this is scary. Okay, the Slenderman Mysteries is scary for a lot of different reasons, but one of the things is it's a contemporary version of folklore that's gone back for 1,000 years or more, and so in that context, it's very, very terrifying. But it's also about manifesting. That's exactly what this book is about. This book is true stories, right? Which is we'll get to that in a second. But what about you? You're writing about it. You're thinking about it, and what about the possibility of you turning a corner and looking at Slenderman, and you've manifested your own reality?
Well, actually not the first person to mention that. But I think the one difference is that a lot of the people who really got obsessed with the Slenderman phenomenon are people who sort of felt hooked into it and they cannot get away from it. Whereas from my perspective, I'm sort of semi-detached, so to speak, and telling the story of the other people. In that sense, there is sort of like a block there almost, where I'm telling the story rather than being actually part of the story. But what I will say is that, this whole angle of people believing in it and then it manifesting, since the book's come out, I've actually had a lot of stories from people who have had their own experiences since reading the book, which, is disturbing, but also intriguing, the idea that you can read a book and become so engrossed in the character or the figure like the Slenderman that you can cause it to manifest in a strange way, and then you start to see it. So, somebody actually used the term, that said that your book is dangerous, which, is something that actually you can make an argument in favour of. But on the other hand, if you're so caught up in it that, you begin to see it in the real world, well, that says as much, I guess, about the character of the person if they become obsessed, and that's one of the dark and disturbing things about the Slenderman phenomenon, is that unlike so many other creatures in the paranormal world, the Slenderman really is the only one that seems to provoke massive obsession in people. For a lot of other people, it's just an interest or fascination, but it becomes this disturbing obsession which they cannot get away from. It's like the Slenderman gets its grips into them. And I think that's why possibly a lot of the people who've sort of contacted me and read the book and then started to have their own encounters, they all said, that they weren't able to sort of break that link. Whereas for me, I don't have that link, really. I have sort of looking at it, from a journalistic perspective rather than being a victim of the Slenderman.
The ability to tell a story and scare the crap out of your kids, right? This is a family tradition that goes back forever. And it was the warning to stay out of the woods, right? It was the warning not to walk down that road. It was the warning. There were the morals to these stories too as well. So there's that part of it. But it tended to, over time, the more that you tell the story, then it manifests into a reality where those woods, this is a couple of hundred years ago, whatever, in France, suddenly 2 kids disappear in the woods, right, for real. And now it manifests into to being a reality in that day and time. Are we in that same aspect of this? I mean, it has certainly happened so much that manifesting your own reality is something that we have to deal with and consider.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that this does happen. And it revolves around the concept of what are known as thought forms. And for people who may not know, a thought form, it's basically the English version of a a word tulpa, which is something that was developed in Tibet in the Buddhist religion, and they believe that the concept of the thought form is that if enough people focus intently on one particular image, like for example the Slenderman, even though the Slenderman is a fictional creation under that name and description, if enough people think about it, obsess about it, dream about it, think about it, have nightmares, they're focused on it all the time, and this is like tens of thousands of people, perhaps maybe even more, that what happens, the collective hive mind, if you like, of the human mind can externalize this imaginative or imagination-driven creature of the mind and then externalize it into the real world when it starts then to become sort of supernaturally self-aware. So it's almost like giving birth, but in a very strange fashion, to something which then breaks free of the creator and then starts to run wildly in the real world. But it's been unleashed by the power of the human imagination and belief system.
Well, and then we have the hive mind of the internet. Now we get into real dangerous territory here, right? And creepypasta, and we're not talking about thousands of people. We're talking about millions of people now joining in on this hive mind. And if there is a chance for this to become a reality, there you go. You've got the recipe right in front of you. Creepypasta.
Yeah, you're right. And I think the one important thing, people have said to me, well, why is it that, sort of earlier fictional Boogeyman-type characters like Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers, and Jason Voorhees, why didn't they come to life in the same way? And I think the one main reason is because of the nature of society back in the 80s, when we were kids, and this Nightmare on Elm Street movie or whatever. But what you have now, you have the internet, which allows instant access to tens of thousands of pages of material on the Slenderman, artwork, chat rooms, forums, artwork that people, uploaded to their own websites and blogs. You've got people writing Kindle novels, and in other words, it's in your face if you want it, all the time. And that was not the case, 20 years ago. You'd go to the cinema and you watch a movie, and then the sequel would come out a year later, and the sequel would come out a year after that. And in between, you forgot about it. But today, people don't forget about things like the Slenderman because it's constantly there. And I think that's why the Slenderman has really been projected to such a massive scale. I mean, give you an example. If you just type the word Slenderman as one word into Google, you get 7 million plus results.
Right.
That gives you some idea of the sheer extent to which this phenomenon has grown massively. And so I think the internet has a lot to do with it. And of course, there's this very controversial theory that the that the internet itself is becoming self-aware and may actually be provoking even further this sort of obsession and manifestation of the Slenderman.
Well, and then you have, for me, one of the cooler, more fun aspects of creepypasta and some of these characters and stories that have resulted out of that, including Slenderman, which is the most famous, is the modern twist on what makes people scared. You have all of these little modern elements of today's life, and it's scary. It's scary, fun stuff to go and check out because it's written for today. Just like the troll under the bridge or the grandma in the woods, that's, whatever, that was written 300, 200 years ago, but it was scary in that day and time. Today, creepypasta and its approach is with a modern twist on what makes people scared and terrified. And that's what I enjoy the most. It really works. It does its job.
Well, it does. I mean, you only have to look at, for example, why things like roller coasters are so popular. What do people do when they get on them? They scream their heads off.
That's right.
Because people enjoy it. But the big difference is that's like a safe danger. It's not real danger. And I think a lot of people got into the Slenderman mystery thinking it was just going to be, this is a cool story to read on, Halloween or whatever. But it doesn't stay like that. It's like a dark cloud grabs them, so to speak, almost, when they've started to read about it and they become thinking about it more and more. And so, again, you have this situation where the safe danger angle is replaced by a real danger and a real fear of this fictional entity come to life. And but it's interesting when you talk about these sort of old stories. You can find them all around the world. I mean, it doesn't matter what country you're in, you'll find kids everywhere, frightened of something under the bed or something in the closet. Now, you could literally go to any country on the planet and find something like that, but there's no reason for it. It's basically sort of like a subconscious archetype buried deep in our subconscious and our minds, which, for whatever reason, kids are frightened of there being something under the bed. And I think that's kind of the same with the Slender Man, that if you go back in history, you can find a lot of other creepy things like the Slender Man, sort of tall and shadowy and dangerous, but they weren't known as the Slender Man back then. But I think, again, this imagery of like a dark-suited predatory character creates sort of a chilling imagery in the minds of most people. And I think that's why, again, it's created this almost like iconic now creature, because it resonates with everybody in sort of in a disturbing way.
Let's take a break right here, Nick, and we'll just start discussing the book when we come back. Our guest, Nick Redfern. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. You can also follow Nick at Nick Redfern UFO. It's right there in Twitter. We've already got it posted. It's Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
Does your basement or crawl space have a damp, musty smell? Well, watch out! That's a sign of too much moisture and not enough ventilation. And that can mean increased mold growth and the buildup of harmful toxins and gases. Don't bother with a dehumidifier. It just circulates the same unhealthy air. Now there's a better way to remove these dangers and odors. It's with the computerized Wave Moisture Control Unit that reduces moisture and expels pollutants.
We replaced our old dehumidifier with the Wave unit, and in only 3 weeks, our basement is dry and the musty smell is gone.
Wave units require no maintenance, no buckets of water or filters, and costs only pennies a day to run. Breathe better, live healthier with an affordable, no-maintenance Wave unit. Call 888-717-WAVE, 888-717-WAVE, or visit dryhealthyhome.com, dryhealthyhome.com.
Ride the wave, Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA Digital Broadcast Station.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to jimmychurchradio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And this is Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
Yes.
We are of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
Ancient Life Oil. life-changing, the real oil. CBD is truly ancient life oil from the source. This oil has no psychoactive effect and is also legal in all 50 states. When you're healthy, you're happy. The truth about this wonderful plant is that it wants to give back to mankind life, longevity, and happiness. Ancient Life Oil are golden grade, all organic, non-GMO, and infused with high-quality liquid coconut oil. It's simple. Just go to ancientlifeoil.com today. That's ancientlifeoil.com. The best, purest, organic, and non-GMO CBD in the world. Go Beckley Tappy. The statements made regarding these products have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Please consult your healthcare professional about potential interactions or other possible complications before using any product.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Also, go find me on onstellar.com. Nick Redfern UFO on Twitter. We're discussing his book. I'm going to hold it up to the cameras here. It's the Slenderman Mysteries, an internet urban legend comes to life. It's his latest book. And Nick, what I would like to do is, for those out there that may not know, what were the origins of Slenderman?
Well, although, as I said, there were these earlier archetypes which we can sort of get into, but as far as the actual Slenderman itself is concerned, it was created in the summer of 2009 by a guy named Eric Knudsen. Now, Eric Knudsen was one of many people who took part in a contest at the Something Awful website to see who could come up with sort of the creepiest boogeyman type character for the internet era. And a lot of people put together their own artwork and images and Photoshop pictures, and there was no sort of faking or hoaxing. It was just a genuine contest, to see who could come up with an entertaining entity. And the one that really captured just about everybody's imagination and attention was Eric Knudsen's Slenderman. And for people who may not know, the Slenderman in the artwork looks about 7 to 9 feet tall, very skinny, wearing a black suit, not unlike the Men in Black, white shirt, skinny black tie, and has these octopus-type tentacles coming out of its back. And its face is completely blank. There's no eyes, no mouth, no nose, no ears, just like a blank face. And Eric Knudsen photoshopped a number of pictures where the Slenderman was sort of in the background lurking, where there were these groups of kids, which sort of created the image that the Slenderman was this dangerous, predatory entity. Now, literally within weeks of the Slenderman phenomenon taking off, you had chat rooms, forums online. You had a phenomenally successful show that was broadcast on YouTube called Marble Hornets, which was a fictional show. Each episode lasted about 20 minutes or so, and it was like a found footage Blair Witch type thing, and that had a gigantic following and still does, and people writing Kindle novels and their own online stories, and blogs are being set up, and it went on like that for a few months until something very strange started to happen. Whereas instead of just reading about the Slenderman online, or looking at the artwork, or taking part in chat rooms and forums, people started to claim to see the Slenderman in the real world, like lurking in the woods near their homes, or they'd wake up in the middle of the night semi-paralyzed, unable to move, and see him looming over the bed. And most of these people, if not all of them, were absolutely sure that these were not bad dreams or anything like that, that he was really there in front of them. So this is when things changed from being just this fictional creation and a bit of entertainment, to where, as we mentioned with thought forms, suddenly the Slenderman strides out of the world of fantasy and right into the heart of our reality. And it took really only a few months to go from, point A to point Z, really.
Yeah, it went completely viral. And at that time, I've lost one of my channels here. Hang on for a second. I don't know what's going on. Oh, there it is. It's back. At that time, you had things like Silent Hill, right? The video game, Resident Evil. So there was a lot of imagery that was being projected into that culture. And Slenderman, it was like the perfect time for that to come along. And like you said, in a couple of months, completely viral, all over the place. Now you've got the makings of that internet hive mind and the possibility of this manifesting itself. People are already getting freaked out, like I said, by Silent Hill and some of the other things that were happening. And I think that quite possibly these things that they were seeing, these were reports of real sightings. Do you think that it was the magic of manifesting what everybody's greatest fear was in a Pandora's box being opened?
Yeah, I mean, I think some people, just became obsessed with the phenomenon and could not leave it alone, and psychologically it began to disturb them. But in saying that, when you have a lot of these people who claim to have seen the Slender Man in the real world, I don't think that's mass hysteria. I think we are really dealing with a thought form type situation. Now, one of the reasons why I think it took off so quickly and became this sort of dangerous thought form is because a lot of the followers, not all of them, but a lot of them were young kids and teenagers. Now, the big difference between kids and teenagers today and when we were kids and teenagers is that we would always be playing outside, on your bike, and your parents are like, well, just make sure you're back when the moon sets or the moon comes up, you know what I mean? That kind of thing.
Right.
And you'll be riding around on your bike and falling off and banging your arms and, whatever, and having a good time with all your friends. A lot of kids today, unfortunately, they've got all the advanced technology, but they're isolated, instead of, like we used to do, riding your bikes all around town, 5 or 6 of all your friends and whatever. That doesn't go on as much anywhere near as much today. So you have a lot of kids isolated, just texting their friends and sending Slenderman pictures. And you can see how this isolation almost can cause that obsession to increase. And I think that also had a lot to do with this. And as you said, it really did go viral to the point where, it was a definitive phenomenon in no time at all. And then when more and more people claim to have seen it, you had more and more stories about, hey, this guy saw this woman saw that, this girl saw this. And so there was almost an expectation of seeing it as well, that people expected now to see it in the real world. And that, I think, only amplified the belief systems even more. So it was kind of like, a stone rolling down the hill. It was just getting more and more momentum, by the minute.
How did you collect these encounters for the book?
Well, I mean, part of the process was, obviously, when there was a lot of news stories about the Slender Man, was just to do a lot of online research, and also, into magazines and newspapers, and speaking to people who had also previously looked into the Slenderman phenomenon when it began back in 2009. I interviewed, I think there's probably about 20 people in the book I interviewed altogether, giving their views as well on, witness reports, how this could happen, etc., etc. And I wrote also a few blog posts and articles, and that provided feedback as well. When you go to conferences and lecture and you talk about things like this, people inevitably come up to you and share stories, which is a good thing. So it was kind of like a combination all this together, really sort of, and then weaving the story into one big saga, I guess.
When was were you able to determine the first Slenderman report?
You mean when people claim to have seen it in reality?
Yeah, in 2009.
Well, I cannot tell you the exact first one, Jimmy, but what I can tell you for sure is that people were definitely putting stories online in 2009. And talking about in some of the chat rooms how they said, I remember one of the early ones from 2009 when a girl said that she saw it in the bedroom and it didn't seem like a normal dream. She was like semi-awake and could see the Slender Man, and she said it was, totally unlike a normal dream. And that actually provoked, I think, something like 27, 28 comments, something like that, from people who were sort of fascinated by this, and one or two of that 28 had very similar experiences as well. So it started to sort of creep out. As I said, the whole thing began in the summer of 2009. It started to creep out sort of towards the latter part of 2009. There could have been earlier ones. In the book, I talk about some earlier ones which were clearly almost identical to the Slender Man, but from other countries, which, the term Slender Man didn't even exist for them back then. But in terms of the Slender Man itself, there's no doubt that it was sort of late 2009 when it went from being just a creature and a contest to something more.
What you write about this encounter in 1898. And when I read through that, it felt that's exactly what people are seeing today. Could they be seeing the manifestation of Slenderman today? I keep saying manifestation as if he's real. Well, I kind of believe that he is, but in that, how do I want to say that? Everything is as real as you want to make it, right? So. But if we go back to the story in 1898, is there the possibility that the Slender Man of today has been around forever and we've just caused him to come back and surface?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, because throughout many cultures you can find things which are almost identical. For example, in Native American lore, you have a creature known as Walking Sam. And Walking Sam is like an 8-foot-tall, skinny figure, wears dark clothes, and he wears like a top hat, like one of the old-style hats from centuries ago. And in a number of Native American reservations just a few years ago, a number of kids on the reservations killed themselves in the name of Walking Sam. Now, you can go back into Germany long time ago and find their equivalent of the Slender Man, which was known as Der Grossmann. And Der Grossmann has been incorporated today into sort of the Slender Man mythos, so to speak. And then probably the most famous example would be the old kids' folklore fairy tale of the Pied Piper of Hamelin, which actually, people say, well, it's just a story. But you often find a lot of these folk tales and fairy tales, are based on some sort of reality. But the Pied Piper of Hamelin, Hamelin's a small town in Germany, and we don't really know how far back the story goes, but it's at least 500 years. And the story is that one day this strange, tall, skinny character came into the town and offered to help the people of Hamelin to get rid of the infestation of rats which had taken over the town. So the piper takes out this pipe and starts to play it. It's like a supernatural flute, and it hypnotizes all the rats to follow him out of town, and they all drown in the local river, so there's no more of a rat infestation. The local mayor refuses to pay the piper the money that he promised to pay him. So one day the piper decides to get his own back, and when all the parents and the adults are in the local church, the kids are playing outside, and he starts playing the flute, and he hypnotizes all the kids in the town to follow him. and he reportedly takes the kids through this portal in the woods and into the mountain, the nearby mountain, literally into it through a portal. So what you have here is something almost identical to the Slender Man, a tall, skinny, weird-looking character who takes over the minds of children, lures them into the woods, and then takes them into a portal into its own world. You know, all of those angles turn up in the Slender Man phenomenon, and I think when you tie that with the German legends, the Walking Sam one from Native American lore, you put all these together and many others, and I think we are dealing with an ancient archetype which over the centuries has been identified in different ways and with different names. And I think with Eric Knudsen, yes, he created the Slender Man in the 21st century, but I sometimes wonder if possibly, you know, deep in the subconscious of all of us, there is this image of this creepy character, and that now and again somebody will create a new version of it, thinking that they're the one who created it, but they're just ripping it out of the depths of their subconscious, really.
And what about the Babadook?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's another example, a perfect example. You know, you've got, again, sort of like a predatory, dangerous figure. I mean, whether it's the Babadook, Slender Man, Walking Sam, the Men in Black, the Black-Eyed Children, the Shadow People, you know, all of these things are extremely similar. You know, and they invade our dreams, and they're sort of seen as like a bogeyman type character. They're all threatening, intimidating. You know, they often turn up in the middle of the night and terrorize people. And I think, you know, you could even make the case perhaps some of these things are almost like shapeshifters. You know, they take on different forms depending on the culture and the era and the beliefs of the people of that relevant period.
And then you have, Rita used to tell me over the years, going way back before Slenderland, or Slenderman, Slenderman.
There'll be a Slenderland one day, you know, somebody will open it.
That was funny. The Baba Yaga. Have you read about the Baba Yaga?
I don't think so.
Okay, there's your next book, The Baba Yaga, which this is Russian. You know, it's same elements, you know, going back hundreds of years. And Rita used to tell me about how scared and terrified she would be, that everybody had their way of telling the story. And, you know, there's books and so forth in Russia about the Baba Yaga. But all of the elements are in play, right? And it's really, really, really funny, but used to teach lessons, but also scare the crap out of the kids.
Well, yeah, and I think, you know, that's one of the inadvertent parts a lot of people forget, that a lot of these folk tales and fairy tales were designed to, you know, to frighten kids as a means to stop them wandering off, you know, 500 years ago into the woods, and they're never seen again. And I think what's happened, you know, a lot of those old stories, you know, kids' imaginations particularly, you know, when your imagination is really firing up when you're sort of 4 or 5, kids remember that kind of thing when they're told it as kids, and they believe it. You know, it's like this sense of wonder which we kind of lose a little bit as we get older. So I think, you know, the strength of these fairy tales and folk tales, again, kind of provokes a sense that this isn't just a story, that there's a reality to it. And then again, you're then on the verge of that dangerous territory of creating a thought form which becomes independent and starts to roam around in the real world.
Now, going back to the book, and we're going to head towards a break here in just a second, is through your interviews and your research, geographically, was Slenderman centered around certain cities, certain states, certain countries?
That's a good question. It's actually quite difficult to say because, you know, when the whole thing kicked off, you know, it was an American phenomenon. You know, it was created in America and in the English language as well. So I think, you know, the I guess if you look at it from the perspective of common sense, the English-speaking language parts of the world are going to pick up on it first. But, I mean, I've got reports, which I talk about in the book, from New Zealand, from the UK, from the US, from Germany, and I've actually got one which has come since the book was published from Puerto Rico. So, again, I think it's a case of not so much whether or not the phenomenon is growing elsewhere, it's just the extent to which people, who's picking it up first, But it's certainly spreading, there's no doubt about that. And, of course, in just a couple of months, there's a major cinema movie coming out on the Slenderman. So, it'll be interesting to see if that sort of impacts on sightings as well.
Should we be afraid?
Well, we shouldn't be afraid, because I think that just sort of plays into it even further. These high states of emotion and believing in these things only increases their ability to operate in our world. But I guess, particularly for, kids and so on, it's hard for them not to be frightened of it. It's kind of like they read all these stories about this dangerous entity, the Slenderman, then they're never going to be able to think of it as like a friendly creature. There's just no way to do that. And of course, telling them, well, don't think about it. That just doesn't work. You cannot say to someone, stop thinking about the Slenderman, because you say that, well, the first thing someone's going to think about is the Slenderman. It's almost impossible to stop thinking about it, and that's one of the problems, is that it's in people's minds all the time, and a lot of it is driven by fear, and that's why it's constantly there. So we shouldn't be frightened of it, but I can understand why a lot of people who've been sucked into it are frightened by it.
Well, okay, so we shouldn't be afraid, but what about concerned? Should we be concerned?
Well, we should be concerned. I mean, probably the primary reason being how many attacks, and in one case a fatal attack, that there have been on people undertaken either in the name of the Slenderman or by people who were, by their own admittance, obsessed by the Slenderman. So I think, we have the paranormal angle, the thought form angle, but we also have people who've descended into states of mind where they've totally blurred the lines between reality and fiction and cannot distinguish between the two, and they've gone on basically, sort of rampages. That's the only way to describe it. So we should be concerned about how vulnerable people can be, and can be sucked into just the psychological side, never mind just the paranormal angle.
Yeah, well, if somebody's going to get obsessed on something, then they're going to get obsessed. It doesn't matter if it's Slenderman or if it's oranges, right? It just doesn't matter. They're susceptible to that. But there's the other part of Slenderman, which is an obsession with an addiction that can't be helped, right? And they just want to continue forward into it. And that is where I think we should be concerned, because there's something is activated in our DNA that causes, like what happened in Wisconsin.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in a strange way, it's almost like what's known as Stockholm Syndrome, which is this situation where if somebody's kidnapped and they're held long enough by the kidnappers, they start to resonate with and gravitate to the kidnappers. They sort of develop an affinity with them, even though they kidnap them. And it's a very strange phenomenon, Stockholm Syndrome, but that's what happens. And there's no doubt that's happened with some people with the Slenderman, that they're terrified by it, but they feel also drawn towards it as well. And the more drawn towards it they feel, the greater sort of an affinity they have with it, and they feel that it's, it's something that relates to them as well, and which is, again, like a dangerous angle where they get closer to the Slenderman and feel that he's the only one who understands them, that kind of thing, and that's when you really sort of cross the line, I guess.
Yeah, I did that with creepypasta, and I would know 2 minutes into the story if I was going to get hooked, right? And then I would go out and get into another story. But the point is, I was elevating the fear. Right, you know, you got to, and the way that these modern writers are creating this stuff, some of it is really, really scary, and you just, you know, your expectations, and you're trying to get that adrenaline rush back, and so you have to push it forward, and I think that's where the danger is, certainly when it comes to Slenderman.
Yeah, you're right. And you think about it, if you put all those issues we've spoken about so far together, all into one sort of mixed bag, so to speak, then you can realize and understand how something has happened that we've never really experienced in history before, you know, with all the angles of the online presence, the movies, you know, the Marble Hornets, just about everything. You put it all together, and we're in sort of, to a degree, we're sort of like uncharted waters in terms of trying to figure out how far this phenomenon, which began as just a fictional event, you know, how far is it actually going to go, you know?
Yeah, I remember on the Something Awful forum, and you start to look at some of this Photoshop work, you know, what people considered scary, very talented, right? And you sit and you're looking at these illustrations and you're like, man, where is this coming from? It's really good. It's amazing, but it's got that modern element of terror to it. And I could understand where this would start to manifest, because you get drawn into these images. You start staring at them and they're burned into your eyeballs.
Yeah, you're right. And again, as I said, the most intriguing but also disturbing aspect of this is that you don't find this with, you know, pictures and stories on the internet about the Men in Black or the Black-Eyed Children. You know, those stories are all there.
Right.
But it doesn't grip people, or they don't grip people in the same way that the Slender Man does. And that's what makes it almost unique, but in a bad way, in a disturbing way, that there are no other fictional entities really that have been sort of semi-brought to life, if you like, that have the impact and the effect that the Slender Man does. And we still don't really know why it does with the Slender Man and why it doesn't with the Shadow People, why it doesn't with the Black-Eyed Kids, you know. So there's something going on that is really, you know, kind of pulling something out of, you know, the minds of these people that is driving them to this phenomenon more and more.
Let's take a break right here. I want you to consider what you just said, because I want to continue that thought right after the break. Our guest tonight, Nick Redfern, the book, The Slenderman Mysteries. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires. This year we've experienced more than our fair share. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and last month I decided to make sure my family does not have to worry about food should we get caught in a real emergency situation. Introducing Numana, a healthy, storable product that tastes so good that you'll want to eat it every day instead of just during those times of duress. All Numana products have a 25-year shelf life, are MSG and GMO-free, no preservatives, and are made in America. With the Numana pack in your home, you'll be able to sleep at night knowing that you've protected your family. Not only have I tasted and tested, I own it. Now you can too. Just click on the Numana banner on jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code Jimmy when you order. In addition to a discount, we'll send you an autographed Fade to Black t-shirt. Seriously, go Beckley Tappy.
Do you worry a lot? Whether you're a college student, busy professional, parent, or grandparent, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in 1 to 2 weeks. Call 1-800-758-8746 or calmandclever.com.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
Hi folks, what can I say without making claims? CBD is truly the buzzword for health. What does it do? Government institutions will not allow me to say what this wonderful oil does for us. But I can say it's non-GMO and organic. I can say it's 0.003 THC, which in plain English means you won't get high. There are those that want to squash your freedom to buy natural products. Fight back with your purchase power. In the end, it is you that takes care of your health. Go to ancientlifeoil.com. One more time, ancientlifeoil.com.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Nick Redfern, talking about his new book, The Slenderman Mysteries, an internet urban legend comes to life. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. You can follow Nick at Nick Redfern UFO on Twitter. Now, Nick, right before the break, we were talking about what could be the trigger. What is it that is causing this this addiction to Slenderman? And I mean, could it be our DNA? Could it be something that is just waiting to be, ignited inside of our brain, some chemical? And the Slenderman story is just the right, the right recipe to kick this off, where people cannot resist.
Well, I think part of it, at least, does come from what we mentioned earlier, that kind of fun fear that people have, when, like I said, like roller coasters, watching a horror movie, you jump at the, the scary point, and then you laugh because it's like a safe danger, so to speak. And I think a lot of people kind of got into it excited by this creepy character and the stories, but they then found themselves sucked into it even more. So I think, in terms of this whole angle of how it's gone like that, that's certainly part of it. But I think also, when you're talking about people becoming obsessed and so on, I think there's more to it than that. It's sort of, I wouldn't even say it's like a subtle, it's almost without knowing that people do get dragged into this further. And when it starts to take over their lives, as it has in some people's lives, where they felt dictated, by the Slenderman's, the phenomenon. So I think a lot of it is based around the mindset of the person. That's going to have, regardless of how involved the person is or isn't in the Slenderman phenomenon, when they do get involved in it, if their mind is one that's easily sort of manipulated, they're sort of weak-willed, or they're looking for some excitement in their life, in a worst case possible, that's when the Slenderman kind of wins,
Well, we have the much publicized 2014 incident in Waukesha, Wisconsin, that grabbed everybody because you've got two 12-year-old girls luring somebody else from the neighborhood. They need to make Slenderman happy, right? And I don't know how many times they stabbed her. I think both of the girls were aren't they? They're like in mental institutions now, right? They've been hospitalized. They weren't sent to prison, but I mean for a very long time. 30 years each or something. If I remember correctly. But that's what grabbed the headlines. But right after that, a month later in Ohio, there's another case there, just as tragic as what happened in Waukesha, but that didn't hit the headlines. Tell us about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is the interesting thing. Up until, when the attacks occurred in Waukesha, Wisconsin in May 2012, up until then, nobody really had any sort of understanding or even knowledge, of the Slenderman. Even though it had a huge following, if you weren't into it, you really didn't know about it. But the fact is that when everything sort of took off big time in 2014, when you had this attack, not just people in Wisconsin or even the United States, but across the world, suddenly it all heard of the Slenderman. And certainly the May 2014 attack, was the one thing that sort of, exposed everybody to the Slenderman phenomenon. But you're quite right that there were follow-up cases. For example, excuse me, there was one which occurred, as you mentioned, in Ohio, and this was just very, very shortly afterwards, and it demonstrates, again, this situation of young kids, sort of doing things, that you wouldn't normally do. And but this is exactly what happened. And there's actually several cases. In one, a mother actually was attacked by her daughter. Was literally waiting for her when she got home. She was wearing like what was described as a death mask and carrying a knife, and stabbed her mother, attacked her mother, who fortunately wasn't sort of badly injured. But nevertheless, it demonstrated the ways and means by which this phenomenon was growing. And then there was another case where, for example, a young girl tried to...
Let me jump in. The daughter that stabbed her mom in Ohio, completely obsessed with Slenderman.
Yeah, she had a journal where she wrote about the Slenderman and sort of, related to him and felt that he was the only one who could kind of understand what was going on, and there were all these references in this journal, and that's something that happened, with the girls in Waukesha. They too felt drawn to the whole Slenderman phenomenon and came to believe, that they were in touch with him, and they had to stab their friend, in the name of the Slenderman. And so, that's another example. There was also a third case, for example, where a mother in Florida, in Pasco, Florida, mother and her son just managed to escape from their home when the mother's daughter set the house on fire. And she, too, was obsessed with the Slenderman. So, we're not talking about kids, just sulking in the bedroom and wanting to read about the Slenderman instead of coming down to eat dinner. We're actually talking about, parents being attacked with knives, an attempted murder of a young girl, and, a house being burned down to the ground. This is not sort of natural behavior. But now what I would say, what something that a lot of people don't know and was never brought up in the court cases is that Waukesha, where the most infamous attack occurred when the two girls attacked their former friend, a lot of people don't realize that there are pre-existing stories of Slenderman-type creatures in that area. One actually goes back to 1921, which I talk about in the book, when the body of a young boy was found in a local pool, just on the fringes of Waukesha. Now, literally only a couple of miles from where the attack in 2014 went ahead. Now, a psychic looked into this murder and said that she could see this tall, thin man in a black suit carrying this unfortunate little boy's body through the woods. Now, this case was 1921. Now, one of the people I interviewed for the book was a guy named Mike Huberty, and Mike had an encounter with a Slenderman-type character in the woods of Waukesha, just a couple of miles from where the 2014 attack occurred. But Mike's encounter occurred in the mid-1990s, and he saw this tall, shadowy, skinny figure looming in the woods. So, in other words, you have this bizarre and little-known history of attacks in that area which predate the attacks of the two girls, not by years, but by decades. And there's a lot of other weird stuff in Waukesha as well, which sort of brings to the fore, is it a case that, the girls attacked of their own volition, or should we look at the bigger picture of these other cases as well that occurred in that area? But that was never brought up, in the trial in any way at all. So.
I grew up there in that area, and that's part of my interest into all of this is because Waukesha is something that you speak about a lot growing up. And when I heard about this case, and I think about the part of America that this could happen anywhere if it's happening in Waukesha, and that's what freaked me out. I mean, it's such a beautiful part of the world. And the other thing for me, like these two little girls, they were 12 years old each, and these incidents now are starting to happen around the country. That could there be, and this is where I think we should start to be concerned. Could there actually be like a Slenderman defense, right, in the court system?
Well, there was a lot of debate went on, as to the state of the minds of the two girls. And, when you look at it, it was clear that they were not sort of angling, for an insanity plea to get released early. They fully believed in the existence of the Slenderman. They felt, or they feared, that if they did not literally sacrifice their former friend to the Slenderman, that he would come after their families. And so that's why they were driven to do that. And when they stabbed Peyton Leutner, that was the girl who got stabbed, she was stabbed 19 times, and amazingly she survived, and she's made a full recovery physically and psychologically. She's fine now. But the two girls fled the area, this area of a local park where she was stabbed. The police soon picked them up because they were walking along the side of the highway, heading off to a large area of forest land where they fully believed the Slenderman had this sort of creepy old mansion and they were going to live with him. They fully believed and bought into all this. Now, interestingly, the mother of one of the girls said that she'd seen that her daughter had seen a Slenderman type thing years before, which again opens like another aspect of the story. So, there wasn't sort of a plan, if you like, to have a Slenderman defense. That was never part of it. But it clearly came out in the court that this was not, just a ploy to try and get off with an insanity plea rather than a murder plea. They really bought into it, and the court realized, that the place for them was not jail, but was a hospital, and they will be. As you said, they'll be there a long time. They'll be well into middle age before either of them are ever released.
Now they're getting ready to do a major studio release on the Slenderman, and are we again in a little bit of danger world by doing this? When, Waukesha and other incidents have happened around the country, the phenomenon continues on the internet, and shouldn't there be some kind of caution here about what could happen because of Slenderman? And now we're going to come out with the movie. I'm going to see the movie for sure, but what if another incident happens?
Well, I guess there's two ways of looking at it. Is that if we bring it to attention, then, in terms of the idea of it coming to life and further, is that going to make people think about it more? Or should we say nothing? And then in that case, it might lessen the impact, It's sort of like, it's difficult to sort of say, because you don't want to be people in a position where nobody knows about bad things in the world because you worry that then bad things are going to happen. You can't live like that. People need to know when there are dangers out there. But you actually make a good point, Jimmy. It's hard to say. I wish I had a sort of a straightforward, solid answer as to what the answer actually is. I mean, all I can say for sure is if you look back at the history of the Slenderman, when the two girls launched their attack, within weeks there were two more attacks, and then there was one in the following year in Las Vegas where there was actually a killing. All I can say for sure is that when the phenomenon is exposed and highlighted, bad things have happened,
And so you interviewed 20 individuals for the book, and you and I and a group of friends were sitting around a campfire. What's the story that you whip out first?
What, in relation to the Slenderman?
Yes.
Okay. Well, certainly the creepiest story came from a woman I spoke to a couple of years ago named Lacey, and she, at the time, was a trainee flight attendant, and I spoke to her on a couple of occasions and met her once, and she, by her own admission, like so many other people, became obsessed with the Slenderman phenomenon. It didn't stay as just something that interested her, and as she told me, she printed off like 20 or 30 pieces of artwork from the internet, and got a bunch of picture frames, and turned kind of one of her rooms into like a spare bedroom, into a room where it was just filled with artwork of the Slenderman. She was up late at night on her days off from the job, taking part in forums and chat rooms, and a lot of her research, if not the vast majority, was done online. And that's an important point, because she said at the height of all this research, when she'd been digging deeply, and she'd also been looking into the angle of thought forms that people were already then talking about, and she said on one occasion she saw what looked very, very briefly like a millisecond, but it was enough to make it out. She saw what looked like the image of the Slenderman's face on her laptop, and then it was gone. And she said it happened a second time where she saw actually the silhouette of the entire figure on there. And then on a third occasion, she had like a voice come through the laptop which said, "We're friends now." And this literally sort of totally freaked her out. And she literally destroyed all her files, took down all the paintings, took out the frames, and just screwed it all up and put it out in the garbage. But what was really weird is that she had a copy of a previous book on the Slenderman, written by a friend of mine named Robin Swope, and Robin's book was called Slenderman From Fiction to Fact. And Lacey was so terrified by what she'd seen and done that she actually burned her copy of Robin's book. And that demonstrated how how she'd been plunged into this state of terror, and particularly by having these fleeting images of the Slender Man on her laptop. And she was one of these growing group of people who felt that somehow the internet was becoming self-aware, that it was picking up on her thoughts, and in essence sort of recording and chronicling all the sites she was going to, and then in a strange way projected it back to her. And she's never really got back into the subject ever since, other than to share the story with me, which she said she was okay with it going in the book, because she didn't feel that terror and paranoia was there anymore. But at the time, she said, she, looking back, she was like totally deranged, to a degree at least,
I'm looking at some of these historical pictures that people have posted that they found over the years of what could be Slender Man in the background. I gotta say, some of it's pretty convincing. I mean, that'll put a chill down your spine. It just appears to me, looking at some of these historical photographs, that he's been with us for a very long time. I think that the internet is just, Allison just said, did we create him or did we just energize him?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I think we created him in the sense of what his name is today and how he specifically looks with like the tentacles and so on. But I think what we actually did, we sort of woke up something that's been with us for a long time, and we gave it a new name and revamped it. In the same way you can find all around the world stories of strange creatures at bridges. Everybody's heard the story of the ghost of the old lady at the bridge, or, there's a Bigfoot beneath the bridge, or a troll or whatever,
Right.
It's kind of like that thing. You can find stories like that everywhere. Friday night, a bunch of kids go out to the bridge and try and summon up the old lady or whatever. I think there's a bit of both, really, in relation to that point. But, when you talk about the artwork you were looking at, one of the reasons, I think, why it struck and caught the attention of so many people is because, admittedly, a lot of the artwork is really kind of done very well, and to the point where people do just sort of stare at it, and they're like, whoa, this is like really, almost like hypnotizing. That's what I think got a lot to do with it as well. It really drags people in, because the whole thing, whether in a strange way and a disturbing way, it's all having been done so well.
Have you seen the trailer from Sony?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
And what do you think?
Well, I mean, it kind of captures that sense of paranoia, and the sense of fear and of the unknown, and predatory things just outside of the visible eyesight or whatever, and what's coming. It's I think that what it does more than anything else, it creates like a build-up, which is, I guess, what movie trailers are meant to do. But more so with the Slender Man, it creates, just in the trailer alone, it's like this sense of impending, growing unease,
What we've got about 2 minutes. I did want to ask you this before we hit the break and come back. Do you listen to do you go and read or listen to any of the creepypasta stories?
Not really. I mean, I did when I was doing the research. I read a lot of them to get kind of a flavor of the stories and the vibe, from the people and basically, the culture surrounding it. But I did that because I think it was important to understand. I can't just sort of talk about creepypasta or something awful. You need to sort of understand the concept of it and like the vibe and everything else. So yeah, when I was doing the research, I did, and one of the things I realized was the extent to which sites like this and others, they take up a lot of a person's time, a lot of their life, and they take it very, very seriously, and a lot of work goes into some of these stories, and there's nothing wrong with having an interest and writing little horror stories online. But I think when you start doing that at the expense of having a normal life, that's when problems can set in, and and that can relate to any aspect of life. If you become obsessed with it, then danger sets in. It's inevitable,
Yeah, Jeff the Killer, right?
Yeah.
Whoa, man. And
yeah, I mean that's a perfect example of how that the internet allows the ability to create these characters that people they're like, whoa, this is so cool, not realizing that, well, maybe it's not so cool after all, but it's something that you might regret,
Yeah, Jeff the Killer is over the top, right? So you take the idea and you create an image, and the next thing you know, then you're building this story, and it's about as out there as it gets, but it's modern. You know what I mean? That's the thing. This is what we've gotten so scared over the years, like I had said, to get that adrenaline rush, it's got to get scarier, it's got to get crazier, it's got to get freakier. What do you get? You get Jeff the Killer. And that's an example, man. You've really got to push it.
Yeah, you're right, and of course, the problem is, well, what's the next step? What's going to be the next entity that's going to create this kind of phenomenon, or is it just going to be consistently the Slenderman's going to be sort of the leader of the pack? Is it just going to stay like that? I mean, that would not surprise me that if it just did not carry on, with the Slenderman sort of marching ahead, because, like I said earlier, it's difficult for a lot of these people to walk away from it or forget about it when they've invested so much time and obsession that the chances of them, it's almost like a junkie. It's like asking a heroin addict to stop, just period. It's not going to happen.
No, and your comparison to roller coasters is perfect. If you think about the Colossus or whatever, these roller coasters of the 20s and 30s and what we have today in amusement parks, it's craziness what you have to do because you have to keep, right? I don't know what's next. You just, you get pushed out of an airplane, I guess. I don't know what.
Well, I think the one thing that's probably going to increase massively over the next few years, and I mean it's increased a lot, in the last few years, is like virtual reality.
Yes.
I could easily see how kids 20 years from now might be spending, half their lives in virtual reality worlds,
Seriously getting scared, if you think about it. This is Fade to Black. Yeah. Our guest tonight, Nick Redfern. We're talking about his new book, The Slenderman Mysteries, an internet urban legend comes to life. I'll be right back.
Hi everybody, this is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Your contact for current news and trending topics. KGRARadio.com.
What can I say about the most popular tea on the internet? And what do customers say about Life Change Tea at GetTheTea.com? A lot. But by federal law, we at GetTheTea.com cannot make claims to how this product can enhance your health. We cannot even post our testimonies without being in compliance. So how do we get past the hump? Try our products at GetTheTea.com and see for yourself. You can send us a testimony, but we just can't post it. Bummer. Our products are GMO-free and organic. We pride ourselves in being the best we can be, and we urge you to take charge of your health. We're 11 years strong, and many of our customers have shared their successes with friends and family. Protect your colon. Log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. GetTheTea.com. GetTheTea.com.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of Fade to Black by just calling 605-562-4482. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Just call 605-562-4482. You can listen to me, Jimmy Church, on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Go Beckley Tappy.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why Fade to Black? Because you never got that pony, damn
it. This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Nick Redfern, talking about his new book, and it's great, by the way, The Slenderman Mysteries. And Nick, one of the, for me, I like nonfiction, right? That's what I like. I like nonfiction. And this book is nonfiction. That's the scariest part about this book. This isn't. These are real experiences, and you mentioned Las Vegas earlier, and I want to go back to that for the audience because they actually know or have heard about what happened in Las Vegas, but they didn't know about the Slenderman connection, and this was. This happened at a Walmart, and now the audience is going, oh, wait a minute. I do. Okay, that's the incident, but they don't know about the Slenderman part of the story. Take us through what happened. It was a husband and wife, by the way.
Yeah, well, it all went down on June the 8th, 2014, and the couple involved were named Jared and Amanda Miller. And they lived in Las Vegas, and they were a couple who were heavily involved or interested in superhero type phenomena, comic books, graphic novels, that kind of thing. And Amanda, she was heavily involved in the whole Harley Quinn character, like a super villainess created by DC Comics. And but they both had this obsession with the Slenderman. And like so many others, they took part in online discussions and, followed all the developments in the stories, watched Marble Hornets, all this kind of stuff. And And then, for whatever reason, they went down the same path as so many others, and they started to get involved in buying guns and camo gear and all sorts of stuff, and then it was like a ticking time bomb was growing sort of bigger and bigger. And what basically happened was that they gunned down 2 police officers and killed them both, and killed a guy in Walmart as well before they were both killed. And when the police began their investigation, they found out there was this connection, this obsession with the Slender Man, and how they would sort of, Jared Miller would dress up as, the Slender Man with the suit and paint his face white and things like this, and just another disturbing aspect, if you like, of how not just young kids, but I think he was like 30 or something like that, but can still get kind of sucked into this. And, so again, that's like yet another case of just people going off the rails and causing havoc and death. And there's a direct connection to the Slenderman.
And there, I talked earlier about Grand Theft Auto and the Slender Man, his appearance in Grand Theft Auto. Yeah. And it was it's terrifying. It's fun. It's a great twist to it. Have you ever gone and found him in Grand Theft Auto?
No, I actually haven't, but I knew that sort of brought it into it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool, and you can't escape. You can't escape Slenderman, by the way. Has anybody? Can you defeat Slenderman?
Well, that's an interesting question, because one of the theories in relation to thought forms is that they can essentially be disintegrated or dissolved in pretty much the same way that they were created, by intense concentration. In the one hand, you have intense concentration to create it. You focus on the image of how the Slender Man looks, the suit, the pale skin, the faceless face, the tentacles, and you project it outwardly, and you've got thousands of people doing that. You do the exact opposite to deconstruct it. In your mind, you try and focus on literally disintegrating the creature until there's nothing left whatsoever. And the theory is that actually works. But the problem is there are so many people that they're not dangerous, but they still enjoy reading the phenomenon and have no intention of leaving it alone. So, in theory, we could destroy the Slender Man, and obliterate it from reality by not thinking about it, and when we've destroyed it. But that's sort of asking for too much. That won't happen. So really, we're kind of stuck with it, because that, as I said with Google, 7 million results. You're not going to find a substantial number of them just walk away from this subject that they've sort of embraced for however many years.
And then of all things, and I keep bringing up the word concerned, 2015, there was literally an epidemic of suicide attempts by kids as young as 12 through 24 at the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation.
Well, yeah, this is a very disturbing story. The Pine Ridge Reservation, again, goes back to the whole Native American culture and their beliefs in this creature known as Walking Sam. And as I said, the story of Walking Sam goes back a long way, and it too is sort of associated with suicide, with death, and the worst part of it was that the angle, the story, the fiction behind it, the legend came true, and you had a substantial number of kids who killed themselves on the reservation, and a number of others who attempted suicide and fortunately, they didn't either go through with it or it just didn't work. And in some cases, it was, just a cry for help. But again, it all revolved around a tall, skinny figure, dark clothes, and like some of these creatures, like the shadow people and the men in black, wearing a dark-coloured hat. And in everything but name, Walking Sam is the Slenderman.
Then you write in the book, okay, so I go back, I bring up Gran Turismo, I bring up all of these other aspects of it, where Slenderman is singular. It's one, but you bring up Robin Swope, right? And you bring this up, and that I have often thought, what if there were two? What if there were a dozen, right? And you bring it up in the book, and you take it plural, right? You go from Slender Man to Slender Men, and an army of them. Tell us about that.
Well, Robin is the guy who I mentioned earlier, who one of the people I interviewed for the book, Lacey, she burned his book. That was Robin, who I mentioned, Slenderman from Fiction to Fact. She actually burned his book because she was so disturbed by everything that was going on in her life. But when I interviewed Robin specifically for the book, he told me a number of stories which were usually just in the singular. But there's this one particular case from the 1950s in Ohio, where he interviewed a pastor. The guy's a pastor now, but back in the 50s, he was just a young kid, and this guy, the pastor, told Robin as to how he'd seen this sort of almost like an army of slender men walking across his family's farm one particular day. And what was weird was that everything suddenly went quiet, like a vacuum. He couldn't hear the insects, the birds, the wind, nothing. It was just like as if the volume had just been muted, and that was enough to sort of spark the man's attention. And he said that he saw a line, in his own words, a line of slender people, as he called them, coming out of the woods just across from the neighbour's place. And he described them as tall, dressed in dark clothing, and walking, again in his own words, at a slow, relentless pace. And then they suddenly vanished from sight. And he came to believe, the guy who told the story to Robin, he came to believe, that there was something sort of demonic or paranormal about of this, and in terms of what it actually was that he was seeing, whatever these things were. Now, because this was in the 50s, he didn't refer to it as the Slender Man. But obviously, when the Slender Man started to get publicity, this guy was like, "Wow, this sounds just like what I saw, but 50 years ago." And I actually have another case where there was more than one Slender Man, and this was actually brought to me since the book was published, and it came from a woman who actually saw two of these in a cemetery in Dallas, which is about 30 miles from where I live. That's why she contacted me, living locally. And she saw two of them, and she described them even down to the no eyes, no nose, no mouth, no ears. That was, literally the Slender Man, or the Slender Men that she saw. But I will say that the vast majority of cases, it still is just one entity, but there are cases like the one that Robin investigated, where we're talking possibly dozens in that case.
And the other part, I got a couple of emails once we announced that you were coming on the show and we were going to discuss this book. And in the emails, they both, two different people, but saying the same thing, that Slenderman is not real. Why do you want to entertain this? And I had to step back and say to myself, is it that if somebody takes the time to write an email, Nick, as we're all busy, Nick, and you understand this. So I responded back and replied back, what do you mean it's not real? We have crazy incidents around the country that are happening, tragic incidents that are happening around the country where Slenderman is real to these people. And certainly in pop culture, it is real. Slenderman is copywritten, right? This is not some folklore thing. This is something that has manifested itself into reality. And we have something here that needs to be discussed. It needs to be talked about. When somebody says Slenderman isn't real, what is your response?
Well, no, I mean, that's a good question because, when you sort of look at it from the outside, if you're not sort of fully aware of the entire phenomenon, I can understand why people say, well, this was just a contest, online, and so how can it be real? Now, before we get to the paranormal side of it, if you just look at it from the angle of people whose, mindset has kind of crumbled and they cannot distinguish between reality and fiction, for example, like the girls in Waukesha, they were clearly mentally, psychologically unhinged. But for them, as you said, they fully believed in the existence of the Slender Man. The other girls, the one who tried to kill her mother with a knife in Ohio, then the girl who burned down the house in Florida just not long after that. In those cases, both girls were heavily involved in the Slender Man phenomenon, and for a lot of these kids, it is all too real. Now, on the other side of things is the thought form / paranormal angle. Now, all I can tell you for sure is that people like me and Robin and various other researchers like David Weatherly who've looked into this, collectively we have dozens and dozens and dozens of stories from people who've spoken on the record and shared their experiences where they've said they've seen the Slender Man in the real world. And when they've looked into the different theories, they felt, for the most part, they were dealing with something like a thought form, the collective mind projecting it outwards, and then it comes to life. Now, of course, that theory is dictated by whether or not you believe in the concept of thought forms, or you just think it's people who become unhinged. But all I can tell you is that the people that, like me, David Weatherly, and Robin have spoken to, come across very, very credible, and they're just sharing their stories in a lucid fashion, nothing crazy about them, but what they're telling is a very controversial story. And, all we can do is chronicle those stories and speak to the witnesses and judge their characters and see where it all goes. So nobody's trying to present this as some sensationalized story, fiction becomes fact. No, we're all looking at it from a logical perspective, trying to understand how for so many people it has become real,
Well, and the way before Slender Man, we had the Hat Man. And I had read and talked to, I heard about this since I was a young kid, and the similarities are spot on the money. And what is there a connection there for you?
Yeah, there is. If you look at the Hat Man, he's like this shadowy figure that wears like a black fedora hat. Well, that's extremely close to what a lot of people report in the Men in Black stories. They wear these black suits, they're often skinny and pale, and they don't look fully human, and they still wear these old fedoras. You can draw parallels as well with like the black-eyed children who, they wear black hoodies, they're pale, they knock on the door and trying to find a way in, just like the Men in Black. The Hat Man very often manifests in people's bedrooms in the middle of the night. There are cases of the black-eyed children doing the same thing. You can find a lot of mirror images, if you like, between all of these phenomena, the shadow people, the Hat Man, black-eyed kids, Men in Black, Women in Black stories. They're all crossover phenomena. and the Slenderman is probably, the latest addition to it. I did think at one point the whole black-eyed children was going to kind of explode, phenomenon was going to explode in the same way the Slenderman did, but it didn't quite reach that peak. But that certainly has a huge following where, there are a lot of fictional stories online about the black-eyed kids and novels, Kindle books, that kind of thing. But there's also a substantial number of people who claim to have seen the black-eyed kids in the real world. So, the two sides are very similar, whether we're talking about the Slender Man, the Hat Man, the black-eyed kids. You can find the fictional side, and then you can find the supernatural, quote, real side, if you like. So I think a lot of these phenomena are somehow interlinked, possibly from the same source, but we're just not fully understanding what that source really is.
Do you think, and I've seen this now pop up a bunch here in Twitter, and I understand this kind of concern. Do you think that the phenomena, you have the idea of it in the front end, but do you think that the phenomena could be exploited by some government program like MK Ultra, where they're taking the mass audience and the idea further to cause a disturbance, a ripple?
Well, I haven't seen evidence of that, but what I would say is that if somebody in government or even, in the medical community wanted to see how fictional entities can impact upon the mindset of massive numbers of people, there is no better phenomenon to investigate or study than the Slenderman phenomenon, because that gives you all the examples and answers that you need. And I think it does demonstrate how the human mind can be affected and manipulated in some of the worst ways possible. In fact, there are no good ways in which the Slenderman phenomenon has not done anything positive. Okay, it may have excited a lot of people reading the stories, things like that, but really there's nothing positive. Everything that sort of captured the attention of the media is 100% negative. So, you can learn a lot from how the mindset of people is actually changing, in relation to this phenomenon. And you can actually, by studying these people, you can learn a lot as to how the human mind can be almost frighteningly quickly can be altered, in radical ways.
Well, when you have, and we've always enjoyed that, whether it's Edgar Allan Poe or H.P. Lovecraft or Stephen King, we all like a good scary story. That's what we do. You turn down the lights, you crawl into bed, and you try to get terrified, right? That's what this isn't anything new, but something with Slenderman took off completely out of control. And I don't know if it's the story, if it's the internet, or if it's the imagery, but something got triggered there. And I'm not sure what caused it, but it certainly worked for me.
Yeah, no, I don't think anybody really fully understands how and why it's had this impact, and why the Slenderman literally ruins lives, but the black-eyed kids don't, and the Hat Man doesn't. But so I think there's no doubt there's something unique, and by saying unique, I don't mean in a positive way. I mean in a very dangerous and negative way. There's something unique about the Slenderman, the overall phenomenon, the fiction to fact and everything in between, has created this atmosphere of sort of dread, fear, mixed in with excitement and obsession. And, it's like putting a match to a stick of dynamite, and just holding it there for a while, and then it suddenly explodes, and for all the, the research I've done, I mean, the book's like 300 pages, for all the research I've done over the last few years, even I don't have a full answer as to why this phenomenon took off against all the others that really didn't take off. Why was it the Slender Man, to such a massive degree compared to everything else? And maybe it really was just the imagery that, caught people's attention, and then it was expanded upon. But maybe there's a more subtle angle as well that we're not really seeing.
One last question before I say good night, and I want to thank you in advance, Nick. It's always amazing to sit and talk with you. But with Eric Knudsen, does he feel responsible? Is there any guilt? Does he have any regrets for the creation of Slenderman? Certainly, I'm sure he's financially just off the hook because of it. But does he ever speak about that?
Well, yeah, he did make a statement. When the attack occurred, the two girls, and he's not responsible. He cannot be held responsible for creating an image and then somebody decides to attack or kill someone in the name of a piece of artwork. It's not like Eric Knudsen has anything, to feel guilty about at all. He can't be responsible for what other people do any more than the rest of us can. Now, whether or not it plays on his mind, I don't know. But what I would say is that if people are going to do things in the name of this or that, if we're to put blame on somebody who created a fictional character, and then somebody said, "Well, I'm going to kill someone in the name of this fictional character or that one," there would never be a fictional story ever written again for fear of being sued up to the eyeballs,
Right.
So I think we need to use common sense from this aspect that no, just because somebody creates something, they cannot be responsible for what a deranged person does,
Yeah, I think about what Rob Halford went through. You remember when he,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, same situation here.
Yeah.
And, I spoke to him about that at length, and he said that just wore him down, getting taken into court because of, music. But it was what they were saying about him personally and what the music was doing to society. He had to sit and listen to that over and over again, and I was just wondering if Eric has considered that part of it, and could he be dragged into court like Rob Halford was?
I honestly don't know. None of that's happened. I think if something like that was to have happened, it would have happened, in the most notorious case, that one of the two girls in Waukesha.
Right.
The fact that it was not even a part of the case, I think that the court quite rightly realised that just because Eric Knudsen created the imagery, he had no role whatsoever in any part whatsoever, in terms of having an impact on this. It was just down to the girls, So, but you cannot sort of police everybody, on what they might do in the name of whatever. Otherwise, society would grind to a halt, So but again, these questions are good questions, and what's important is that questions are being asked that don't relate to any other aspect of the paranormal world at all. Again, this is what makes the Slenderman unique. You would never be asking me these questions, which are quite right to ask in terms of Slenderman, but you would never ask me these questions in relation to Bigfoot or aliens or the Loch Ness Monster.
Right.
Because there's been no evidence or stories or events which have impacted on those paranormal phenomena as they have with the Slenderman. So, again, the uniqueness of the questions is something that is unique, to the Slenderman.
Yeah, tonight I'm going to go watch Marble Hornets after the show. Okay, again, thank you. Three quick questions. One, where can everybody get the book?
Well, the book's The Slenderman Mysteries. You can get it from Amazon online, and most of the Barnes & Nobles have got a couple of copies in stock as well, if you for people who still enjoy rambling around bookstores. So.
And what is the next book? What are you working on now?
Well, I've actually got my 5th Men in Black book out next month, actually, on June the 5th. It's called The Black Diary, and it's like a journal-type approach of all the weird MIB stuff I've investigated over the last 3 years or so.
Yeah, I can't wait to get that one. Where are you speaking?
The next one is actually not till July. I'll be speaking at it's like a question-answer forum at the Dallas Public Library in July, and it'll be sort of a little bit of departure for me, because it won't be a conference with lectures. It'll be a panel, and the audience will be made up of people who want to come along and ask questions of the UFO phenomenon. Any
conferences coming up for you?
No, actually, I've got a quiet period until later this year. I think the first one will be the Mothman Festival in the second weekend in September. Then the weekend after that, I'll be speaking at the... I forget which one it is now.
Is it on your website?
Yes, it is, yeah.
Okay.
It's all there.
Thank you so much, Nick. Just amazing. We'll get you on in next month after the next book 5 for the Men in Black comes out. I really look forward to it. Thank you so much, my friend.
Right. Thanks, Jimmy.
Thank you. Nick Redfern, everybody. His website's right there at jimmychurchradio.com. Nick Redfern 40 at blogspot.com. Links are right there. It's Fade to Black. I'll open up the phone lines and take your phone calls next. Stay with me. I'll be right back.
Hey, what up, y'all? It's your girl Vivica Fox here, and you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
Hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires. This year we've experienced more than our fair share. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and last month I decided to make sure my family does not have to worry about food should we get caught in a real emergency situation. Introducing Numana, a healthy, storable product that tastes so good that you'll want to eat it every day instead of just during those times of duress. All Numana products have a 25-year shelf life, are MSG and GMO-free, no preservatives, and are made in America. With the Numana pack in your home, you'll be able to sleep at night knowing that you've protected your family. Not only have I tasted and tested, I own it. Now you can too. Just click on the Numana banner on jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code Jimmy when you order. In addition to a discount, we'll send you an autographed Fade to Black t-shirt. Seriously, go Beckley Teppy. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hey, can we talk about something serious for a minute? Your age. Getting old has its perks. But remember, being a few years younger, you know, your hair was thicker, you didn't have so many wrinkles, that extra weight wasn't haunting you, and you just felt better. Well, we can't turn back the clocks and go back 10 or 15 years, but you can start feeling and looking 10 or 15 years younger with Nature's Youth RSF. It's a doctor-formulated daily supplement that helps your body maintain its peak performance and fight the aging process. Imagine sleeping better, looking better, and feeling better. See how Nature's Youth RSF has helped thousands of people just like you at nature'syouth.com. nature'syouth.com. The holidays are coming. Imagine how it will feel when your family and friends are asking you what you did to look so good. Your secret will be Nature's Youth RSF. It's time to start looking better and feeling better. Learn more and order your Nature's Youth RSF at nature'syouth.com. That's nature'syouth.com.
Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
All right. Fade to black. Thank you, Nick Redfern. Great conversation. Got some audio gremlins tonight. And Gabriel just said, I wonder what Jimmy's doing. Let's play a game. What's he doing off camera? And I was replacing a cable and for one of the phone lines. So I'm going to see if this is actually working. So let's see if it works. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Deb from Sacramento.
Oh, the cable fix worked. So you can hear
Jimmy,
me.
well, this is weird. Can you hear me?
Yep.
So while I was on hold and the commercials were playing, I could hear you in the background of the commercials going, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, and it happened like 3 times. I was like, okay, I'm in a parallel universe here.
See, but I was waiting for you to respond, and you didn't. So I didn't think the cable worked. See, I did that for you, Deb, so you could actually say, yes, I'm here, but you didn't say anything, so I... Thanks for the help.
Yeah, because the commercials were playing.
I know.
The commercials were playing, and I was on hold.
I didn't know.
And you were in the background of the commercials.
Okay, all right. All right. So,
Maybe I
okay,
just don't
but you're
understand.
here. You're here now, and we're good.
Yeah.
So what's on your mind?
Oh boy, what's on my mind? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Deb. I can really hear you.
I'm sorry. So the other night you were saying, and I've totally remembered this, and it really related to what we were talking about tonight. You said you could literally go and Google something, and by the time you go back to YouTube, there'll be all kinds of threads on what you just Googled.
That's right.
Because we're constantly being monitored and we're being profiled.
That's right.
So the people who are doing this, why couldn't they use that technology, and we don't know how advanced that technology is, to profile and use it against people who are interested in Slenderman? Because their whole thing is create a problem, then create the solution, then restrict our rights. And what community are they targeting on the internet?
Of course. I mean, of course, right? I mean, that's not a question. That's a statement.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, but the only difference between Slenderman and all the other paranormal things, too, is he was created on the internet.
Yes.
So
And
it
well
could
done.
be sinister forces, or it could be our consciousness feeding it.
Right. And I definitely a combination of the both, but some mad German scientist figuring out a way to plug into our psyche effectively, right, without fail, a fail-safe way of doing it, and figuring that out, because it appears that Slenderman worked, right? That combination, it worked. It's just an incredible thing to have witnessed, and to see this manifest. I keep saying manifest because I can't think of another word right now, but have it manifest into pop culture where now crimes are being committed. That's crazy to me. So is it that effective? I don't know. But to bring up a couple of questions, could it be a government program? Well, that's certainly interesting. Could they have figured out a way, that Stanford University, UCLA, MK Ultra, psychological program of mind control actually be in play. I know it seems like a stretch, but it's working. You know, and
well, how else did that woman actually hear her computer say, "Now we're friends"?
Yes,
Slenderman. I mean, wouldn't you freak out if your laptop talked to you?
Yeah, well, I had that happen to me. I brought this up before. I think I've mentioned it, but back in the day, and I know this sounds crazy, but back in the day, I went to a website that I was warned about. I was told by somebody, I'm not going to say who, I'm not going to get to specifics, but I went to the website and it immediately, and I thought it was a joke. And this thing flashed up on the screen, and this, I'm talking about 1995, 96, right in there. And this thing flashed up on the screen with my name on it. And I thought, now, how do they know this? And then something else popped up on the screen, and it kind of freaked me out. And then my screen went staticky like a television, which I've never seen on. Yeah. It was digital, but it went funky, and then went blank. And now I don't know what caused it. It wasn't a virus. I don't even think viruses were around back then, at least not like this. But I had to have the computer repaired, and it never really got back to normal. And I can tell you this: I never went back to that site. My memory says a couple of weeks later, I got a message, and I don't remember how that was relayed to me, from that website saying that, you know, we're watching you, or something to that. And back then, the internet for me was such a strange place and so mysterious, because it was, right? It messed with me, and from that day forward, and I still practice this to this day. I have friends that get viruses. I don't. Why? I don't click on nothing. Right? I don't. Yeah. I don't click on anything inside of an email. I don't click on a site that I don't deliberately go to. I don't steer off the path. I have friends. My daughters get viruses, right? They're out there clicking around and, you know, trying to find the new whatever, some video, whatever. You know, you're out there goofing around. You're going to encounter that stuff. I do not. I don't get viruses. I just don't click. I just don't. Hey, Deb, I got like 15 phone calls here I got to get to.
I just hope, because Slenderman is so negative, we don't give it any attention and we keep it off of On Stellar. And I'll let you go, Jimmy.
I'll talk to you, Deb. Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling? You're live. I can hear you. 3, 2, 1. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling? You're live. Wow, that's strange. I might actually have swapped out the wrong cable. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
So, Jimmy, it's Kyle from Sacramento.
Hi, Kyle. How are you, man?
I'm good. I was just calling because I heard your thing about the website back there, and I don't know exactly what it was back then, but back in the 90s, I can tell you how it probably did it, which is, back then, programs were not sandboxed, meaning that they weren't in their own closed environments where everything happens within that environment, stays within that environment. So it probably just read a simple text file on your computer. Now they call it a DX diag, but back then it was called something else in Windows 95. And it just basically displayed your first and last name. That's all it did. If you put your first and last name in, it just displayed that. And I figured that out because I had websites displaying my username for my computer, which was not my first and last name back then because I was like 10.
Right.
Super young.
Right.
But I seen the name and didn't use that name anywhere else. I knew the name was only in one place. So that's how I instantly figured out, oh, this is reading through the profile on the computer.
Interesting.
And then it probably could have been a virus that shut your computer down, because back then they were very malicious, and they had some that would literally kill a CMOS on a computer with no issue. Completely clear out your BIOS and wipe the chip. It was like nobody ever wrote anything to the chip whatsoever.
Yeah, I remember those. Yeah, I remember those rumors going around, and that's how McAfee made all of his money, right? Just the thought, the threat of it. But it really freaked me out. It scared me to the point of I don't want to say the website, but it has to do with New World Order kind of ish idea. I'm not going to I'm not going to go there, but I felt like I was in a zone where I shouldn't be going there, and then that happened. So you know what?
Back then, with the way all websites looked, back then it was very easy to be misled and think you're going places you shouldn't be, when in reality, just some Joe Schmo from San Francisco put it up on a server.
Well, you only have to.
But that was fun back then. That was part of the fun of those days, too.
It was part of the fun. I mean, you go and you put your hand on a hot burner on the stove, and you don't think it's hot, and you burn your hand, right?
Yeah.
You don't touch it.
Are you hearing the show feedback on the line?
What's that?
I'm hearing the show feedback on the line on about a 1 minute delay.
Oh, that's somebody that's on hold. That's probably, I'll tell you exactly what it is. It's somebody that's got the radio up in the background.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've got calls stacked up. And so the next call that I'm bringing in is next to you. So you're listening to that caller. Right? So
I'll throw that idea out there.
See, I'll bring it in. I'll bring
you got others holding.
Kyle, I'll bring him in right now. Turn me down in the background. Can you hear me? Hello? See, this is him.
I'm still here.
Oh, now he's turned me down in the background.
And then muted himself.
Yeah.
Or herself. Now he's turned me down.
Oh, see, there it is. You hear it?
Yeah. I hear the radio.
Yeah, see, that's what's really funny to the audience. That's what Kyle was hearing in his headphone mix in the background, and I hate that. When I hear it, as soon as I bring in a caller and I hear myself in the background, I just want to hang up. I don't want to have to say turn me down.
Both.
I can't stand it. I can't, and it's just please turn me down and be ready to go. It's really bad radio for everybody to hear me say that over and over again. Then you got to pause, and somebody goes, "Okay, hold on, I'll be right back." Dude, I don't want to hold on. Right? It's just I'll just hang up. So there you go, Kyle. Thank you for the phone call, and you bring up a great point. And especially back then. I learned my lesson. I never forgot it, man. I never forgot it. I just don't do it.
Sandboxing now is just as important as the blockchain will be.
You think so?
Oh, yeah. Well, the blockchain, I'm not just the social networks, not just all of that stuff, not just the idea of the voting booths. I'm hearing about it now with everything. Everything from databases to just for simple things of, the random checksums that most big databases will do.
Right.
At either the end of the day or every 4 hours or whatever they do to keep their cycles correct with all their data correct on them. So when people do a search, they get the right information.
Right.
People have talked about putting that in a blockchain now.
Right.
Because it actually it can actually parse and save space.
And it's so when you look at when people hear about the blockchain, all they have read about is Bitcoin, right? And that's their immediate and I understand that. I do. I totally get that. But the idea of the blockchain, which is ingenious, and you take that the engine of the blockchain, you can take that and apply it to so many different things. And that's one part of it that you're talking about there. Another registered artwork, right? Now, and you stop and you think about this. There's so much fake artwork, paintings, fine art that is out there. How do you know if you're buying the real thing? But chances are today there was a I just read this story. There was a gallery in Holland. 80% of the artwork was fake. It's like, wait a minute, how does that happen? Right? Well, anybody can get duped today, right? These curators at these museums, they can get duped. How do you know if you're going to go and buy a piece of artwork that it's the real thing? Well, one of the ways to protect that would be the blockchain. And the artwork is registered there where it can't be altered, right? And that's just another, it has nothing to do with Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, but it has everything to do with creatively applying the blockchain to something else. And it could be anything. And I think that just what you just said, word for word, it's the future, and it took another creative mind to think outside of the box and come up with something for an effective use as a tool for the internet, because the internet is here and it is everywhere, and it's a very.
Throw this idea out there. Think about a blockchain that is the parse for a search engine that is run by quantum computing. You know how quantum computing works, right?
Mm-hmm, I do.
Instead of sending one instruction out and go knock on a bunch of very, very broad analogy, instead of sending a mailman out to go post on every single door and knock on every single door to make sure they're getting the post to the right place, instead it sends a mailman out for every single door and make sure the right mail gets to the right place. That's essentially what a search is almost like on a quantum computing. Now think about that mixed with the blockchain and how it is the blockchain updates every block on the chain.
Right.
You could essentially take a search that is already ridiculously fast now and make it even faster.
Right.
All from a simple website like, Wolfram Alpha or Google or whatever search or term or theory or whatever you want to search and whatever you want to do it with. If those were being run by quantum computers, you would get those kinds of results if everybody was using blockchains on their websites for updating the backend.
Do you know, here's a trivia question, and don't Google it. When you Google a search word or a term, do you know how many servers are used?
With just Google alone?
No, for your single search. You want to search the word hockey puck. How many Google servers?
How many nodes are you connected to, and how many of those nodes are being run by a central processing center?
Okay, but I want your guess. Your query. How many servers are used for your search? I know that.
Probably anywhere minimum from 10,000 to a couple million.
Okay. Well, you're thinking correctly. The answer is 1,000. 1,000 servers per query.
Because the bigger question that I'd have there is how is the information distributed between you and the server that you are actually communicating with, and there's every single one in between. You have to factor in on the scale.
Well, yeah.
And your data doesn't just go between point A and point B. Your data really goes from point A to point A.1, A.2, A.3, so on and so forth, down on a million scale.
Right.
In some cases, if you're sending information across the world, let alone large amounts of it at once.
Yep.
Where the server could move from one data set to another from one server to another server mid-transmission.
That's exactly how it works
on your end because it all just happens so smoothly.
Cisco systems, man. Cisco systems, and it's an unbelievable study once you go and start to look at how packet switching actually works, how switchers actually works, and how things are routed on the internet. And this audio signal that we're listening to now, or a stream, or a phone call, or anything that is continuous. Well, it's not continuous. It's broken up in thousands of packets, routed all over the place. and then strung back together on your computer at the receiving end. It's a fascinating, phenomenal thing to go and study. And there you go. Thank you so much, Kyle.
One of the best parts?
Yes. No, I don't.
Despite Moore's Law, we keep going forward.
You know,
we've broken Moore's Law.
Yeah. Moore's Law has been trampled in the ground, and I don't know. I mean, if we continue, I don't know where it's possibly going to end. If quantum computing is the only answer for that, I'm not so sure. But how much smaller can we really get? You know, and
the bigger question is, how long will it take for us to get quantum computing to a point where it can run at standard room temperatures? And then that's when the question really begins to unfold itself again.
Yeah. I mean, if we really
right now, it's basically holding pattern till then.
Well, if we actually have a quantum laptop and I'm around to see that, that's going to be an amazing day. But it comes down to I've got to run credits and get out of here, Kyle. But the thing is, you know, we still have to make the circuits, gold wire, and so forth. You still have to connect to these chips, and they're getting so small. How do you continue to run the circuits to them? That's the interesting part.
One of the big ones: don't throw your old computers out. Recycle them, because we pull those parts apart and reuse the inside.
Thank you so much, Kyle. Be safe and be well.
Bye.
Have a great night. What a great last phone call that was. And that's the thing with Moore's Law. You know, you continue to get smaller and faster, double, faster, half, double. How small can you really get? I mean, seriously. You know, that's a mind-blowing part of it. I want to thank Nick Redfern. Great conversation. The book is The Slenderman Mysteries. Go and check it out. It's an amazing read. Tomorrow night, Riz Verk is here. The Killer AI. That's tomorrow night. Faded Black's executive producer is Rita Camurian. Shows produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitoa, Mark D. Kovar. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy. SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and syndication is KGRA The Planet. Thank you to everybody that tweeted and called in tonight. Fade to Black is copyrighted. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. Until tomorrow night, I want everybody to be safe. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Until then, go Beckley Teppy.